Hi friends, this is a toy lizard, and it's actually a toy lizard that I used to play with when I was a kid. I've loved lizards since I was very young. I have this lizard poster that you always see. Lizards are just one of my absolute favorite categories of animals for so many reasons, more than I can or will get into right now, but I don't know, maybe one of these days. Um, but anyways, I found this in a box of stuff some years back, and it's been part of an art installation on top of my fridge ever since. And I don't know if you can see this very well, but on the bottom it says iguana. And if somebody were to tell me that this looks like an iguana to them, I wouldn't hold it against them. In particular, there's an animal called a green iguana, which just like this has a long green body, a crest of spines down the back, a long tail. But this actually looks a lot more like an animal called a Chinese water dragon. I would go so far as to say that this is a fairly accurate representation of a Chinese water dragon. And even though the Chinese water dragon has a lot of physical characteristics in common with the green iguana, it's a different animal. It's somewhat related, but not nearly as closely related as a lot of other lizards. It's actually, the Chinese water dragon is actually what's called an agamid lizard. And long story short, agamid lizards come from Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, some of the other islands in the South Pacific. Iguanas come from North America, South America, and then there's a few kinds in Madagascar and some of the islands in the South Pacific, and that's kind of its whole own story. But there's, they come from, for the most part, these two groups of lizards come from different geographical areas, and they have some physical characteristics that are different. So they're different animals, even if they have some physical similarities sometimes. But anyways, this being on top of my fridge, that's the conversation about why this is a Chinese water dragon and not a green iguana is something that's come up at least once. And also I don't know, when I was a kid, I used to see Chinese water dragons in pet stores and things, and I never knew a whole lot about them. And I just got one, after having this conversation about this and just wondering about Chinese water dragons, I figured I would look them up on YouTube, just see what I can learn about them from a YouTube video or a few YouTube videos. And the very first video that came up when I looked them up was from this channel called Clint's Reptiles. And it was this video where there was this guy named Clint sitting at a table holding a real Chinese water dragon, not a toy one, but a real one, and talking about if it makes a good pet or not. And in a lot of ways, I was blown away. I loved the video. I thought it was very responsible. He wasn't just saying Chinese water dragons are awesome, you should get one. He was speaking very realistically about what it would mean to have a Chinese water dragon in your house, and what it would mean for that animal to be healthy and happy, and for you to be healthy and happy with it in your house. And I just thought it was very cool, and I decided to start watching more of his videos, and every video I loved more than the last one. And I started to see people that he would bring on his channel to collaborate with and do things with, and a lot of them would have reptile YouTube channels of their own, and I started watching those. And to this day, watching reptile YouTube videos from these people it's one of my go-to relaxational activities. And something I noticed about all these people is they all use Patreon to support what they're doing. And I realized that that was something that would, in a lot of ways, it would be the perfect thing for me. I mean, in my case, obviously, I'm not recording videos about reptiles on YouTube. That's not my thing. I'm a musician, and you know, just a reminder: my music is always going to be where it's at. It's like I'm putting these videos out to give some insight into what's going on behind the scenes or inside it or whatnot. But my music is always going to be where it's at. It's, if you want the real Elliot Racine, you gotta listen to the music. So I'm a musician, not a reptile video person, but in my case, a, what I'm making music just how I want to make it, and there's a lot of times I have to just build my own infrastructure around it as I go. I mean, as I say on my Patreon page, my music is very grassroots, and the support that I need to build around my music is naturally going to be very grassroots too. And so seeing these people use Patreon, it made me realize, okay, this is something I need to be doing. So that is how Lizards supported my music. Or I should say, that is how Lizards support my music. And I just want to really quickly give a shout out to some of my favorite of these reptile YouTube people. I want to thank All Canadian Reptile Girl, Elle's Reptiles, Clint's Reptiles, Serpa Design, Aquarimax Pets, Reach Out Reptiles, Reptiliatus, Daffy's Reptiles, Wiccan's Wicked Reptiles, Snake Discovery, Shovel Nose Hogs. I want to thank all of you for, first of all of the hours of relaxation that you've given me, for all of the things you've taught me, all of the education you've given me, everything I've learned from you. And I also want to thank you for what you do for the animals. All of you what you're doing is very animal first, and I really appreciate it. I want to thank you for turning me onto Patreon and helping me and helping the lizards support my music. I really want to thank you for that. I really appreciate it. So thank you all so much. And of course, I want to thank my Patreon supporters too. What you're doing for my music is so incredibly helpful, and we all have lizards to thank for all of it. And I think that's really cool. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, reptile video people, Patreon supporters, fans, everyone. Thank you all so much. Thank you, lizards.